Today, the very first video game I ever played was Wolfenstein 3D, and I was introduced to this particular game by my grandfather, and we used to play it all the time on his old work PC. Now, of course, I would move on to Doom and various other games, and I would always remember just how awesome Wolfenstein 3D was. Now, flash forward to 2002. GeneralLotz was a little bit older, and I had just received a Dell PC. And I wanted a new game for my new awesome computer, and what game did I happen to find? Return to Castle Wolfenstein. So with that, let's jump into early 2000s gaming greatness. Return to Castle Wolfenstein is first-person shooter perfection, mixing complex story with complex gameplay, and this game predates the first-person shooter heresy of regenerating health and the two-weapon rule, and it also forgoes scripted events as well. Really, it gives you, the player, a game to play instead of a simple interactive movie. In this game, you play as BJ Blazkowicz, rocketing back onto the FPS scene after a decade-long hiatus. What we have here is a first-person shooter of the highest order. You can carry an entire arsenal of cool guns at any one time. It's time for some weapon reviews. You start off with the Luger P08, and for a pistol it's decent, but as in real life, a pistol is simply a weapon of last resort. So you will trade up quickly for something better. The toggle lock here is actually animated. Oh my god! Yes, indeed. Back in the day, I would actually pause the game to see the toggle lock work. I'm that bloody nerdy. And really, this animated toggle lock mechanism was epic back in the early 2000s, and is still impressive today. Then you have the Machine and Pistole Model 1940, the simplified version of the MP38. This is the weapon you'll be using for the vast majority of the game, as there are literal metric tons of 9x19 ammo for it. It is well modeled, and you actually have the bloody stock extended. And it makes logical sense for old Blasco here to use this weapon, as it's designed for mid-range combat, and that is the range you fight enemies in, and the 9mm is a good man-stopping caliber in a submachine gun. One amusing thing is the fact that BJ can cock the weapon with one bloody finger. You can tell he got his money worth from a diet of protein powder and eggs. Then you have the Silent Sten, and it's given to you by Jamie Heineman? Or possibly his great-grandfather? No wonder he's so badass. It must run in the blood. The Silent Sten is, as you would expect, a Silent Sten gun. But it has one major flaw, and that is the fact that it can overheat if you fire it too long. Now technically, that's not historically accurate, but it's cool. The Silent Sten is a fairly good weapon overall, and it is very good if you want to be stealthy. But since it has the overheating issue, you're still better served using the MP40. Then you have the 1911 and the Thompson submachine gun. Both are rather powerful, but their ammo is almost non-existent since you are fighting behind the lines, so you have to use both guns sparingly. Then there is the extremely, and I mean extreme, like almost 90s style extreme, historically inaccurate K98. For one, it uses a Mannlicher style loading system, which the real K98 didn't use. It used the stripper clip loading system, and in the game, it's a fairly rare weapon. Whereas in real life, the Deutsches here primarily used the K98. And while the MP40 had over 1 million made, they were much less common than this game would lead you to believe. The K98 abomination here is used as a long-range sharpshooting rifle. And no, it's not a bloody sniper rifle. If it was a sniper rifle, then BJ would need to have a spotter to take full advantage of it. The K98 does some good damage and is good for making long-range shots, but I honestly never used it all that much. And once you get the FG42, it's completely useless. The FG42 uses the same ammo and is, in my opinion at least, the best weapon in the game. Mainly because it has a 20-round detachable magazine, it's an autoloader, and has an instant death scope that, while it doesn't have the same range as the K98 scope, it's still long enough for you to pull off accurate shots at long ranges. And its damage potential is extremely high, and you can put down basic enemies fairly quickly. And you can even put down boss-level enemies fairly quickly as well. You then have the specialty weapons. You have two types of grenades, a German stick grenade and an American pineapple grenade. in real life, the Germans liked the pineapple grenade because it was lighter and easier to carry. The Americans, on the other hand, liked the old potato masher grenade because they could throw it further. In this game, however, they are more or less identical. I never found them to be all that useful. The throwing arc is not that far, and the AI is not dumb enough to just stand around and let themselves get blown up. In fact, the instruction manual states that the AI is so bloody smart that they know what a grenade is, and they will kick it back at you if they get the chance. This very concept blew my mind back in the day, because even further back in the day, all enemies ever did was just run forward and shoot at you. Here, they actually could fight in a realistic manner. Little did I know that years later, enemies would go back to the even older method of just run forward and shoot. You then have dynamite, and this is used to destroy structures and various objects, and is handled better here than in later games, as the game lets you place it yourself instead of just holding your hand the entire way. You don't just go to a dynamite-shaped glowing spot and press E, rather you set the timer yourself and then throw the dynamite wherever you bloody well want. Player choice. I thought we had to wait until 2011 for that. Later in the game, you get a Flammenwerfer, and by the great Talos, is it an epic weapon to use. It purges fascists with fire, and the enemies die rather hardcore deaths when it's used. However, it's another special weapon, and I find myself not using it all that much. You then have Old Painless, the Venom Minigun. This is another epic weapon, provided that you use it on boss level enemies, as the spin-up time can leave you vulnerable when fighting groups of basic enemies. You then have the Panzerfaust, and it's portrayed somewhat realistically. Well, not really, but it's more realistic than you'd think. It's shown to be a rocket, when in reality it's more of a recoilless rifle, but at least they got the single-shot nature of it correctly. Then there's the Knife. It's a one-hit kill weapon if you stab an enemy in the back, but that's easier said than done, and you're not going to be doing it that much. You also get the Snooper Rifle. It's an M1 carbine fitted with an infrared scope. It's cool in theory, and there are a few times when it comes in handy, but I never used it that much. This weapon is somewhat based on a real weapon. There was an infrared scope mounted on an M1 carbine, but the batteries weighed 50 bloody pounds. Just imagine hauling that around to power your iPhone 9. Lastly, we have the mounted machine guns. These are useful in several circumstances, but unlike later games, you are not stuck to them. Rather, you can use them or not. It's your bloody choice. And one really cool thing is the fact that you can blow them up if you so choose. Another awesome aspect of the game is the sheer variety of enemies. Most of the time, you'll simply be fighting either SS Paranormal Division men or members of the Deutsches Heer. What's really cool is the variety of uniforms that one sees the enemies wearing. In later games, developers got really lazy with the enemy variety and the uniform variety as well. The basic foot soldats will be armed with a variety of weapons, ranging from MP40s to K98s to even pistols, and fighting them is always tough as they have good AI and can kill you quickly if you don't pay attention. But really, by far, the hardest enemies in the game are the Elsas. And before anyone starts singing that bloody song, I mean Elsa She-Wolf of the SS. Yes indeed, you face Sten gun-armed female SS troops. Who said there weren't women in games? They move fast, and they are harder to hit than the male troops, and those Sten guns can cut you to pieces in just a few hits. And they seem to have slightly higher health than the basic male troops. So really, you gotta have your man-splaining skills set to maximum when taking on these ladies. Also, according to the fluff text, they belong to a witch's coven, because any girl that dresses in black and acts emo is of course Wiccan. Now, if only Wiccan chicks could collect and shoot Sten guns, that would make GeneralLotz very happy in the pleasure centers of brain. Then, you finally have the coolest enemy / most epic moment. Later in the game, you attack a rocket base, and the German military sends in the Fallschirmjäger, or the paratroopers. And yes, they actually do a paradrop. Back in 2002, I was floored by how cool that was. That was truly modern gaming. The Fallschirmjäger are armed with FG-42s, and they have high health, good AI, and do a tremendous amount of damage with their FGs. You then have the zombies, but not the boring and played out modern ones. These are magic zombies. Some can shoot ghost projectiles at you, and for some reason, some can wield shields that actually stop modern bullets. Yeah, good luck doing that with non-magic shields. and apparently this shield extends invisibly to cover their legs, or it could just be bad hitboxes. Remember, no matter what, always blame the hitboxes. So after a little horror detour, we then get to the diesel punk enemies. And the diesel punk enemies are why I call this game a dark shooter. The first of the diesel punk enemies are the Lopers. Essentially, the National Socialists have cut a man in half and then put a Tesla coil up his ass. Crude, I know, but, well, that's what it looks like. Really, these enemies are very, very dark. They look utterly horrific and attack both friend and foe alike, showing that they have gone completely mad from the cyborging process. A student of history will know that the National Socialists were certainly capable of putting someone through such a horrific process and not bat an eyelash at such a thing. Really, this shows that this game has a slightly more mature tone than many of the others. While the game can indeed be a little cheesy here and there, these enemies show just what the National Socialists were truly capable of. The other cyborgs are rather mundane, really, just dudes in armor that can soak up tremendous amounts of punishment and dish it out as well. The game also has a number of bosses to fight, and these bosses range from cool to awesome. One of the earliest bosses is a skeleton that can shoot flames out its mouth. Then you have this giant thing that not only looks creepy, but shoots human-sized ghosts at you. That's fucking metal. Since this is an early 2000s game, there are numerous interactive objects to be found, along with a bunch of destructible objects as well. Further, since this game was an early 2000s game, the levels are large and open-ended, and you are not funneled down one bloody corridor. And some of the levels were jaw-dropping back in the day, such as this huge outdoor level. Back in 2002, this was unheard of. To actually have this much ground to cover was nothing short of amazing. Many of the levels are patterned after scenes from famous World War II movies. The cable car one is from Where Eagles Dare. Hell, in that movie, Clint Eastwood was B.J. Blazkowicz, before said character was even a thought in a developer's mind. Then you have the sub-pin, and that of course is patterned after the famous U-boat scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The levels are really fun to fight through, and it is very fun to do some smashy-smashy on all the destructible objects. Back in the day, I would go throughout levels just smashing up the flags and the armor sets and all kinds of stuff like that, because this game actually wanted you to have fun. Music for the game is decent, but not all that memorable. And back in the day, I used to just blast classic rock while playing. Voice acting for the game is actually pretty bloody good, but the German voice acting is, well, it's World War II movie era styled, meaning it's normed all to hell. But really, this game is supposed to be both serious and fun, and does both rather well. One really cool aspect of Return to Castle Wolfenstein is the fact that it actually comes with the original Wolfenstein 3D. Back in the day, that was mind-blowing, at least for me, because back then it was not an easy prospect to get an old DOS game to run. I don't think DOSBox even existed back in 2002. And really, it's just cool that you got two games in one. In the modern era, well, you can imagine there might be something like Wolfenstein 3D DLC, or no backwards compatibility at all, because it seems that modern-day publishers are a little worried about their previous catalog. I wonder why. The game also features some stealth elements. Some, including me, have complained a bit about them, but once you get the hang of them, they're actually pretty bloody fun, and they give the game more depth and variety. As a PC game, this game thankfully has a quick save key, and by the gratia talos will you need it, as this game is bloody tough. This game does not have regenerative health, but instead you have to collect health packs, and they can be somewhat sparing here and there. One really cool callback to the early Wolfenstein 3D is the fact that you can find hot and cold dinners. So yes, BJ can chow down on some hot chicken or some cold bratwurst and bread. And also, one really funny thing is that you can increase your stamina because, yes, in this game you can sprint a little bit, and you can increase your stamina by chugging down some beer steins. Well, this game can indeed cause a little bit of frustration. More often than not, it will actually cause you a great deal of satisfaction. One final thing to note on the gameplay is the fact that the console versions had one thing the PC version did not: co-op. And it would have been nice if the PC version bloody well had it. Graphically, the game was impressive back in 2002, but this game has aged a bit. The textures are fairly low res, and the weapon models are a bit blocky, and the human enemies also look blocky as well. Thankfully, there are several graphics mods that fix these issues. I am running a fairly basic one in this gameplay footage, and it only changes a few things here and there are of course other more comprehensive ones to be found on ModDB. One important thing to note on performance: if you want to get 60 FPS on a modern day graphics card, you're going to need to enter the console command /r_primitives2. This will give you a sweet 60 experience all throughout. Now, let's take a look at the awesome story. The game itself starts up with a full motion video cutscene that is, in a word, transcendent. When I first saw this cutscene back in 2002, I was floored at how well animated it was, and I was floored by the overall design of the characters as well. I had never seen anything like this before. Ultimately, the cutscene is this. You've got a guy that kind of looks like the heretic guy fighting a Chaos Warrior. After this epic FMV cutscene, all the rest are of course in-engine, and they look decent enough, but they really don't match the quality of this introductory cutscene. So you, BJ Blazkowicz, have to try and stop the SS Paranormal Division from resurrecting Heinrich I and prolonging the war until the Americans can carpet nuke Germany into a radioactive cinder. Sorry, but nukes beat armored knights any day of the week. But that being said, the journey to stop Project Resurrection is a complex and long one with numerous twists and turns and cool characters. As this is an early 2000s game, there are letters and notes found all over the game that flesh out the characters in the world you're playing in. And the game's story is a compelling one, and it feels, in the modern era at least, to have more story and more gameplay than 5 bloody Kabadoobies. In short, Return to Castle Wolfenstein showed what modern gaming could be, and it shows today what modern gaming should be. As you can imagine, I highly recommend Return to Castle Wolfenstein, as it will rock your gaming world. And of course, you can find it on Steam and GOG. And with that, I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good enemy territory and good enemy territory Quake Wars, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed my review of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you these awesome video game and PC reviews.